Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Harold, Discover Your Life with Breath, applying breath as medicine. And today I'm really excited to share this young superstar who I became aware of a few months ago in the Source app, the Breath Source app, where we are guiding folks into a more divine life, into a more abundant life, utilizing everything that's going on in the world to our advantage, not our detriment. And I co-taught an experience with Jolie Franklin last year, and I noticed that she had exceptional skills for someone at her chronological age. And that excited me at a very deep level, knowing that as my sun sets, there's another sun coming up on the horizon that's just as talented or more talented. And I'm just really excited to welcome Jolie into our audience today. Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon,
Hi.
wherever you are.
Yes, afternoon here.
Where
What
are
a
you?
beautiful introduction. I'm in London.
Beautiful. London needs you.
Yes, it definitely needs this work.
So before we begin, would you just take a minute and lead us into some grounding stuff in the body so that when we listen to what you're going to share with us, we can listen with every cell of our body, not just the ears for the brain.
Yes, I'd love to. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's close the eyes. Just being in this space of stillness. And if you're listening to this and you're out and about and walking, this is an invitation to slow down. Slowing down the breath, the pace. And just noticing what you notice. Noticing your physical body. Maybe observing any sensations or temperatures. Maybe you can even begin to notice the subtle changes in the sensations in your body as you breathe in and out. Just giving yourself full permission to be exactly as you are. Observing your mind. And just like the breath flows in and out, allowing the thoughts to do the same. Beginning to soften the shoulders, maybe. What would it be like to release the belly and the pelvic floor a little? And if it feels resonant, declaring to yourself today as you listen to this, I give myself full permission to take up space. I give myself full permission to take up space today. Let's take 3 deep breaths. Let's breathe in through the nose slowly. And open the mouth wide to release. Breathe in slowly. And release the mouth. Last one. Let's breathe in slowly and deeply. And let it all go through the mouth. And if your eyes are closed, opening them back up slowly, bringing back in the light and color, textures. And welcome back.
I just love everything about that. I love the layered narrative. I love that the breath just organically slowed down on its own with the meter of your voice, organically and naturally. You didn't have to make it happen. It was already happening for us. I love the word noticing. You know, years ago when I started to work in the meditation business, oh, I can't meditate. I said, well, you know what? The initial stages of meditation are just say to yourself, I'm noticing the thought. I'm noticing the emotion. I'm noticing the habit. And that noticing word has a vibration through our brain that brings us into a trance. And then when you add that in with the breath, the next thing you know, you've escaped your little jail that you live in and you're taking up space with abundance.
Yeah, it's almost like the act of noticing can create meditation from anything.
Yeah.
Making your morning coffee, going for a walk, if you're at work, if you're stressed and you're actually noticing that you're not feeling a way that you particularly want to be feeling, you can make that a meditation through the noticing of the thing, which is really empowering.
You know, as the body's gotten weaker over the past 25 years with poor food habits, lack of sleep, adrenal fatigue, you know, we haven't become as resilient mentally. And we've forgotten that we wouldn't learn anything without resistance, without putting time in the cockpit, so to speak, and figuring things out. You know, when I think about all the distractions that we have, and it's wonderful, it's a great show, you know, but at the end of the day, we're in a war. And it's a war that you don't win with tanks and bombs. It's a war of surrender. It's a war of compassion. It's a war of, I can forgive myself if I so choose to, because it's just a belief system.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting to notice the part of the mind that's aware of our awareness?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And she is so kind. She never puts us down. She understands the war that we're in. And it's a war for our spirit, our soul, our presence, our ability to be seen and heard in this space and find value.
Yes.
So you're a multi-talented person. My wife, Wendy, who basically runs everything for me. I'm just the actor out there doing the song and dance. She does it all. She works 24/7. She loves you. And she sees
the
an
love
amazing...
is echoed.
Yeah, you know, she sees so much of herself in you. You know, how did you develop all of these skills at such a young age to really turn yourself fully on?
I love that question. And the first thing that came up was I left school at age 11 and I was homeschooled.
Wow.
So from the age of 11 to 16, which is like a really vital prime age of education, when we're really starting to develop our sense of self and notice what we're curious about, what things interest us, and we're starting to build that sense of self. I taught myself. So I chose the subjects I wanted to learn. I spent time engaging with them for as long as I wanted to. And that really created this really deep sense of trust. And I was able to actually spend the time listening to those internal whispers of, oh, this is interesting. Oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like this. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to be different in my intentions when I dive into it. Like, for example, mathematics. Hate it. Terrible. Not my thing. But had to do it to get into college. So I was really able to nurture the part of myself that found it really hard and challenging, and take the time that was needed to learn the skills, which I don't sense I would have had time to do if I was in school, where you just have 1 hour to learn this skill and it's expected that you can learn it in a specific time frame, and then you get tested on it and off you go. So I think it was a really beautiful time where I was able to firstly honor that I was still young and a child, and be able to allow myself to be a child, which doesn't often happen, I think, when you're in school, because, you know, being a young teenager in school, there's so many pressures and you have to kind of show up a certain way, and it's a whole different environment. I was really able to honor my age, and that's followed me throughout my whole life. I'm still very much in touch with that childlike curiosity, and that's definitely the leader and the driver of a lot of the decisions I make. I follow the curiosity, and I feel from my experience that when we can follow the curiosity, that's what develops our wisdom. That's what develops our intuition, and it's what feeds the soul, because it's the soul that speaks through curiosity. The mind speaks through worry and concern and should and action. But when we can follow the energetics of curiosity, it's the soul that's whispering. And I was really able to develop that at a young age, and I'm incredibly grateful, because for a long time I would never tell people that I was homeschooled because of the stigma that was attached to it, and there was a shame there for a while when I was younger. But now I'm like, I really honor it, and it's a really powerful part of who I am, and I advocate for it. I'm like, this is a fantastic thing if, you know, you have the resources. And yeah, it's very beautiful when we can take the time that's needed. And I think that's something I feel more of. The older I get, the more I really recognize how we truly are all on our own unique timeline. What might take you a week to learn might take me a day. What might take me 3 years to learn might take you a month. And it's really, this is what creates this beautiful dynamic and difference between every single person we meet, is we're all on our own timelines. And when we can honor that instead of dropping into comparison, this is what creates society. This is what creates healing in society, when we can honor that own unique path that we're all on, and celebrate that, and be curious about other people. And curiosity is like the master healer for me anyway, in my experience in life.
Curiosity keeps us young, keeps the parts of the brain that were turned on in our youth on. As we lose energy in our body, just as we age and get some miles on the tires, you know, curiosity seems to fade away, and we shift from awareness to judgment mindsets. Like, I know this, so I'm going to move on. Bottom line is you don't fully know this. So I love the way that first of all, the way you've explained that just warms my heart, to see someone following their path, even though there's distractions, distortions, little wiggle rooms. Like, you stayed on that timeline, following the tea leaves, trusting that it felt right. And the commitment that it takes to honoring the way we feel plays a huge role in regard to how we're going to see ourselves and how we're going to see the world. You know, if you were going to describe to someone what it was like when you first consciously decided to follow your breathing, what would that experience sound like? What's the narrative of that for Jolie Franklin?
The first moment for me where the breath became something that I was actively aware of, it was this moment of like, hello. Like, oh, here I am.
I love
I'm alive.
That. I love that.
That's what the breath is to me. It's this like, hi, you're alive.
Hi.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And I think there's so much in this world that is driven to with the narrative of like we're almost not alive, we're controlled by this other thing. And the breath is that reminder of I'm alive, therefore anything is possible. And it's this excitement. And I remember, now that I'm speaking, there was a moment. So I trained in dance as a youth. So I was a professional dancer when I was growing up. And I remember being, I must have been maybe like 10 years old. And I was in this horrendous box split position. And my teacher was like pushing me down to like make the stretch more intense. And it was really uncomfortable. And she said, breathe. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm breathing. What do you mean breathe? 10-year-old me being really sassy. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I took a deep breath and I exhaled, and all of the discomfort of that deep stretch left my body. And it was this click of like, oh, okay. The breath is really powerful here. The breath can really support us when we're doing things that feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about breath work and using the breath as a tool is it really does offer us the support that so many people are seeking outside of themselves, through other people, through other things, through modalities, things that are kind of external to the physical body that we live in. Mm-hmm. The breath offers us all of that. So the first moment that I really was aware of that, it was like this, the first thing I can, I'm a very visual person, but like a Marvel movie, when like the superhero realizes their superpower. It was like that type of moment of remembering that like the breath is a superpower and we get to tap into that anytime we want to. And it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is really one of those things for me where it's like, everything you really want really is right here.
Yeah.
It's right here under your nose, but you're looking out over here, up there, down, you're looking the ego's got us so hacked, away from our heart and healthy feelings and healthy thoughts. The breath is showing you everything you want is right here in the present moment where you can't be distracted. And, life is this dance between interest and lack of interest. And, we're all making this up as we go along. No one can see out, more than a few breaths really and predict what's going to happen. When you started to control your breath, you have this inhale and you have this slight arousal, and you're choosing a belief system. Either I'm organized or I'm disorganized. I'm here or I'm not. Then you have this exhale where there's kind of this recoil, and we relax and you're either organized in the relaxation or you're unorganized in the relaxation. And whatever it is, it's a belief system. It's your belief system and it's fine. But kind of balancing the arousal and the relaxation that's available to us 20,000 times a day. How do you navigate that world as a professional?
Giving myself permission to be as organized or as disorganized as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And noticing the parts of myself that want and have the desire to manipulate that to fit a certain narrative that I think society wants of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like permission is a really powerful healing kind of concept of whoever I am right now, however I'm feeling, however I'm breathing, is okay,
mm-hmm.
is welcome, is a message from my body, from my spirit, from my soul. And I bring that into my facilitation. Like if I'm feeling a certain way, I will share that with clients. Like I don't show up in this space of, I should be this as a facilitator. I should be grounded, I should be regulated, I should have the best bolt score in the world, which I don't. It's quite terrible, and that's okay. Full permission for that. So I think it's this really powerful concept of being human, like allowing myself to be a human being and allowing the breath to be that mode through which I communicate that with other people.
Yeah. So you have a very wonderful way of explaining things that are pretty deep. And I think that's a gift from God because, we're all multi-layered, multifaceted, huge rabbit holes, and trying to put words to things that sometimes, don't require words, but we have to hold space for others while they kind of figure out, how they're going to swing from thought to thought and, reestablish good patterns of movement emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually. When you're working with people, is there like a certain go-to thing that you have that allows people to not only trust you, but to feel safe as you begin to reestablish their footing?
Very similar to what we did right at the beginning.
Beautiful.
All sessions, whether it's online, in a studio, one-to-one, in a group of 50 people, whoever it is, whatever the context is, slowing down. Before anything happens, before any doing is done, is that returning back to how are you feeling right now? What is moving within you right now? Full permission for that to be exactly as it is. And just like we're doing this conversation, allowing the session to unravel itself from that space. Because I think it can be very, and I've been in this way too, you go into a session with an intention of maybe, okay, I'm very anxious and I want to get rid of that. And that's my focus. I've booked a breathwork session. I want to not feel anxious anymore. And that's why I'm here, which is a great energetic starting point. But very often when we can come back to the body, back to the moment, the anxiety is almost like the surface layer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much stuff swirling underneath that anxiety. That anxiety is almost like the bubble wrap that's surrounding actually what the real question is, what the root is.
Yeah.
And we can only access that root from a space of safety. And safety doesn't always happen and very rarely happens after one session. It takes time to feel safe, especially if you're with a practitioner that maybe you've never met before, or if you're new to breath work, and everything takes time. We live in a world where everything is so quick, instant results. And even in the breathwork world, there's so many things that are coming up where, it's this get from A to B as quickly as possible. And I'm like, no, let's get from A to B as long as possible. Let's luxuriate the process. Let's extend the process. Let's just allow the body to actually tell us how we get there as opposed to following a specific structure.
Totally.
And
I love
every
that.
single container is different, which is, again, for me, it's really exciting because there's no predictability.
Right.
And much like life is very unpredictable, try as we might to make it predictable. And again, it all links back to that childlike curiosity. And that's something that I love to support people to tap into with themselves, where they get to be in a position, in a space to ask themselves the questions. And I'm just there.
Right.
I'm not doing anything. I'm maybe holding the space and reflecting things back at them, but there's nothing that I'm doing. This is a space for people to hold their own self, because my intention is that is a skill that we are all in need of, really dire need of. And we all deserve that, to feel grounded and safe within ourselves, and to be able to create that sense of grounded and safety for ourselves whenever we need it.
Yeah, everyone listening, this is somebody who you want to work with, because Jolie just explained how we can create safety without a goal, how we can create safety without competition or rushing or judgment. You know, back when I was a kid, my first teachers, the first thing they said was, you never, ever do more than you need to do with the breath, because the breath is never going to show you how powerful it is, because it's not attached to ego. And you want to respect the power that you've been gifted with, that you're showing people through the breath, because it is really the most powerful gift in the universe that you can give anyone. And as consciousness vibrates as fast as it is right now, you want tools that you know are going to work 100% of the time without any precautions or without any contraindications. So across the spectrum, if you learn how to master slowing your breath down, and that's the only thing you know, that's all you need to know. All the other stuff is noise. It's competition. It's judgment. And we're moving into a time where that is going to be eviscerated if it's coming from a negative fear-based mindset. So working with Jolie and mastering slowing your breath down might be the most important thing you can teach yourself.
Yeah. And also,
Who
I
would have
think
thunk
a soft breath,
Yeah.
really, even just the concept, and I notice this so often with people, when we say take a deep breath, it's like a
Salute.
yeah, totally, yeah, absolutely. It's very like quick and full. Again, it's like, how much air can I get in as quickly as possible? And
where's it going?
yes,
You know, it's coming up here, and then
Right.
all of a sudden you're like taking punches.
Yeah. So it's like slow and steady. I think that quote, slow and steady wins the race. It's like, I always say to clients, slow and steady regulates the nervous system.
Hey, if life's a race, it's a race you want to come in last, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
There's
yes.
no rush. Take
Losing
your
is
time.
winning.
Enjoy the ride. There's no
Yes.
scoreboard. You're not being judged.
Yeah.
I know that you're doing the best you can. It's impossible not to.
Right. Yes, exactly that. That's it.
You know, everybody, it's just like, oh my God, let's take a breath together. Humanity, right now, everybody, could we just slow down and remember who we really, really, really are at our source? And it's okay to forget who our ego constructed in this ivory tower, you know, in our youth.
Yeah, I love that remembering. That's really what it feels like remembering who you were before the world told you to be something different.
And how do you follow those tea leaves 11 through 16? Even though most of us didn't follow those tea leaves 11 to 16, it's just man-made time. I can create in a slow breath a mindset that brings me back to 11 and 16 and neuroplastically rewire me. I can install new software. Wow. So cool. So you've been entrusted with a lot of responsibilities, and you seem to be handling it very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the word responsibility hasn't even come into my thought processes, but it's also an honor.
Oh yeah.
I feel very, very honored to carry, hold, and share.
Mm-hmm. What are the different types of patients or clients that you're working with now across the platforms?
Anyone and everyone.
Anyone who's breathing?
Anyone who is alive and has breath, great.
I love that. I love that.
Everyone can benefit from working with their breath. And I have been in the space of supporting people and their bodies through so many different embodiments. I was a dancer, so I was working from like a performance space, and then I became a personal trainer, and then I did physical therapy, and then I did yoga, and now it's breath work. And I'm now in a place where I can mold all of these teachings together to support people in such a beautiful, well-rounded way. And there's no set specific group of people that I target my work to, because everyone can benefit from it.
Let's talk about dance for a minute. Dance is one of the highest courageous forms of art. As we move our soft tissue against gravity, knowing that our soft tissue, only humans and dolphins have soft tissue that hold memory. And as you move your body in non-traditional ways against gravity, a story unfolds to not only yourself inside, which is very deep, very personal, very intimate, but it's also very beautiful to watch. But beyond that, the art of it, what the body is saying. What was your experience in the dance field from a kind of the four pillars, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually?
It was a challenge being young, growing up in that industry and being in that space. I didn't fit into the boxes that dancers were required to fit into 20 years ago. I was a woman of color with curly hair, or a child of color, curly hair, much more curvaceous than my classmates, wild energy. I was always told by my teachers that I was too wild, and I'm like, that's my gift, that's my superpower, don't take that away from me. So for a long time it was a challenge, but that challenge and being in that space gave me a sense of resilience, because there was always a part of me that knew that I was different, and that was a really good thing. Even though from a mind perspective there was the comparison and the shame and the confusion, even in the midst of all of that pain underneath, I knew there was something good there. And it was that sense of goodness that kept me going through the auditions, through all of the no's. Being able to receive a no from someone without taking it personally, I think that is such a superpower to practice. For me anyway, it really helped me to remember that my perception of myself is the only perception that really exists and matters.
Beautiful.
And consistently practicing that. Not to say that I wasn't perfect. There were times where it really got to me, and I went through a lot of pain and intensity in my teenagehood, as I think so many of us do during that time in our lives. But I wouldn't change anything, because everything builds and shapes consistently through every single experience we have. And this is something that breathwork really allows me to do, is to remove the concept of a good experience and a bad experience. And just know that it is an experience, and I get to take and pull from it whatever I choose, and that I'm constantly being shaped by my experiences, and there is goodness to be taken from everything, which, had you have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have said something completely different. But through time and having more experiences, I'm really, really being in that practice of removing the duality of good and bad, and dancing in the middle. kind of coming
Interesting.
back to that space of noticing, specifically with emotions. You know, breath work, specifically the deeper, more conscious, connected practices where we have and create this space in the body for emotions to rise, to be felt and experienced. You know, we live in a world where we are still being told anger is bad, grief is bad, rage, don't go there, sadness, oh, not great. But joy and happiness are so accepted. And my own personal journey led me down a pathway where I really rekindled a really beautiful relationship with my anger, my rage, as a woman, as a human being. And that was and continues to be the most empowering and important lesson that is continually unfolding.
So well said. It's important for people to know it's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's pain or pleasure. They're the opposite ends of the same stick, ladies and gentlemen. It's all the same. There's no separation. So when you were doing this dance thing when I was a kid, everything was competitive sports. You're either kicking ass or getting your ass kicked. It was everything was competition. And after you came out of this dance thing, you got involved with yoga. And I did the same thing. All in. Like, I wanted to feel everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to destroy my competitive ego that my coaching and everybody, my teachers and all, my social environment had installed in me. How was it coming from the dance, transitioning into yoga, without being competitive and looking over at the next mat saying, wow, I can stretch further than him?
I will say so I've kind of been in the yoga space for most of my life because my mum is and was a yoga teacher. So it's always been a practice. And there were many moments where I would be in a class and I would be completely competitive, knowing full well that I could outstretch everyone in the room. And I would get a kick from that because, I'm human.
It's okay.
But again, it was the magic of being slow. And it was actually yin yoga that transformed everything for me.
Me too.
Because even in vinyasa, there is a flow, there is a constant movement. And for me personally, it was dance in another form.
Right.
But with yin yoga, where you're holding these stretches for prolonged periods of time, then you're meeting discomfort and there's no movement to distract you. It's just you, your body, and your mind.
Right.
That's probably the time in my life in those yin classes, and still now, where I get the most resistance, where I really can see that resistance as a very tangible physical thing through the muscles clenching, through the stories of the mind, through like the very subtle shifts in my body as I'm very subtly trying to lean out of the stretch or the position, or wanting to grab a bolster to try and make it more comfortable for myself, trying to make all of these accommodations. And yin is so slow. Like it's like painful for the mind. That's how slow it is. And that's what we need. That's exactly what I needed. Because I was so quick. Everything was as quick as possible. My nervous system was completely burnt out. I had adrenal fatigue. I had all of the physical manifestations of living life way too fast. And I almost needed that polar opposite to then allow me to dance back in the middle again and to fluctuate between the quickening and the slowing down. So yin yoga for me was a game changer.
And yin yoga is basically the little brother of the slower breath.
Yeah.
They're both connected because it's forcing you to feel. Whether it's good or bad doesn't matter. just feel. You know, folks think they're really tough, you know, and you put somebody in a yoga posture for 10 minutes against gravity with their body weight and breath, and you're going to see God. You're going to see your God. And your ego will be so shattered and broken, and how hard that is to do, to keep your body off the earth or in the stretch when your ego is just, the false part of your ego is trying to have you release. And when you release, there's no judgment. It's just you've chosen in that moment not to feel anymore. And that's okay. You brought yourself to a new ledge, so to speak, or a new step. It's great because we all work with ledges, knowledge. But when I first started holding postures, I found that I could cure addiction. I found that I could cure that monkey mind. I found that I could cure negative stress. It was all right here inside me. All I had to do was just sit with my shit.
Yeah, that's it. Stretch with
all
your
these
shit.
beliefs, all these crazy beliefs. You know, they're wonderful. It's a great movie. It's a great story, but they're just beliefs. And if you don't evolve, you're going to end up like the dinosaurs. How'd that work out? You're going to end up dead. You got to evolve. And holding postures and slow motion breathing, for folks out there, you know, everybody knows the child's pose. Okay? Great place to start. Everybody knows the bridge posture. Try to hold that for 10 minutes. Everybody knows downward facing dog. Try to do downward facing dog with slow breathing for 10 minutes and tell me if you don't meet your creator. Your body's going to shake, your nervous system. You're going to think, oh my God, this is CrossFit on steroids. But there's no risk of injury. All you have to do is stay in the posture and remember who you are, who you've been, and who you always will be beyond your body.
Yeah. And
Gosh, I love you, man.
I always
Dance,
think
yoga.
that the body speaks to us in slow motion. Like the true truth of the body is in slow
Right.
motion. And it takes time. You know,
Mhm.
holding a pose for 30 seconds, you might meet the surface layer where the sun is sparkling on the top of the ocean. Holding that pose for 10 minutes, you'll get to the depths because it takes time. Again, you're creating that safety with your body when you're holding those postures. You'll get the initial resistance of the, oh, I don't know, I don't like this. This feels
Right.
unsafe to me. But when we can start to lean into that edge and start to extend the capacity to hold that posture, that's what creates the self-trust, the safety that, again, we're seeking from outside. So the body speaks to us in slow motion.
It's so cool. And remembering, you know, stress is your superpower. You want to use your stress for growth, not to shrink. So when you've reached a point where you want to get out of that posture and your ego's screaming and your body's on fire, all you need to do is say to yourself, I hear you, but right now, just one more breath.
Yeah.
And then just one more breath. And next thing you know, that old wall where you were crumbling, you've just taken 5 breaths. And then your brain begins to see that your body's actually intelligent. And that was a false alarm. And you were actually okay. So like, where else is this happening in my life where there's fire alarms? I believe it, but I'm actually okay.
Probably in every facet of life.
Oh, it's such a dance.
Right?
It's such a dance. So we've got the dancer, we've got the yoga. Now you're a whiz on the computer, you're a whiz in the yoga and breath world, the personal coaching world, the holistic health world. What else do people need to know about Jolie Franklin?
That she still dances, and that is encouraged and shared. And if you want to work with me, you can expect that I will get you moving. Anytime I have a client who comes into a session and there's a lot happening, we get up and move. And I will do it too. It's not just me sitting here telling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a co-creation. Like, we'll have a shake, we'll have a dance, we'll listen to music. And that is like the one piece of advice I could give to anyone, is to dance every day. You know, it's in some indigenous cultures, you go to the shaman with sickness, and the first question they'd ask you is when was the last time that you danced?
Yeah, beautiful.
And that's a question that I will always ask myself when I notice myself maybe feeling stagnant or anxious or burnt out. It's usually because I haven't danced in a while. So that's like again, it's this co-creation. The breath is involved. But when we can merge the body and the breath, magic happens. So you can expect magic wherever you go with me.
I love that. You know, we're all magicians.
Yeah.
You know, and how do we shift from the old male model of movement with judgment, competition, to just simply movement with awareness and noticing? You know, take the scoreboard down.
Yeah.
There's nobody keeping score, because if you're keeping score, you're probably hard on yourself and you probably say you're losing. And it's all a lie.
Yeah.
None of it's
I always
true.
share, when you're moving your body, make it as ugly as possible. Like your concept of what is ugly, do that. And I'll do it with you, or we can do it together. Because that really just goes against the mind that's like, oh, well, I've got to look a certain way, and it's got to look like this, and I've got to move like this. I'm like, no, be ugly, be primal, make it gross, make it disgusting, and let's go from there. I love that.
Yeah, it's important for people to remember that God didn't create second place. There's no silver medal. Everything is first place, and you've been gold medal material your whole life, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I love that.
So in today's computerized world, people can work with Jolie online, and she's in London. So this goes out around the world. I invite all of you folks, if you're looking for support, if you're looking for a breath practice, if you're looking to learn how to become more self-aware and self-enlightened, Jolie Franklin is someone you want to reach out to. We're going to have a bunch of links below so that folks have access to you and your wisdom. And I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. This was so amazing.
God bless you and your journey.